That night, if you were standing alone at the edge of an old European forest, where the fog lay thick as wool and black oaks rose like pillars of a forgotten temple, you would hear two things at once. One is the wind, ordinary enough, cold and sharp as a blade. The other is breathing, not yours, not the breath of any woodland animal, but something unfamiliar, as if someone is trying to swallow a growl back down their throat. And at the exact moment you ask yourself, am I imagining this? A howl rips the air, long and solitary, like a declaration of war against the entire civilized world. People say the most dangerous wolf is not the one out in the woods. It is the wolf inside a human being. So what if, at some point, a man or a woman truly believes they have become a wolf, feeling their teeth lengthen, their nails harden into claws, their skin shudder as if fur is pushing up from beneath the bone? What is that? A legend? A curse? Or a kind of madness that is real? This question is not just a story to tell around a campfire. It is a trap. Because the moment you answer, no, that can't be real, you must explain why all of Europe once trembled before werewolf trials. Why some people confessed in calm voices that they ran on four legs across open fields. Why towns swore they saw something standing upright like a person, but with the eyes of a predator. And if you answer, yes, you step into a colder question. What does yes even mean? Does it mean there is truly a creature half man, half wolf out there? Or does it mean there is a condition that can make a human mind believe it has become an animal, and then act on that belief so completely that neither the person nor the community around them can tell where flesh ends and myth begins? Imagine Europe centuries ago, when darkness was not a romantic image in film, but a physical truth. Oil lamps barely breathed. Village roads were mud. The forest was the border of death. In that world, the wolf was not a decorative symbol. It was winter's thief, the clacking outside the livestock pen, the yellow eyes flickering beyond the fence. And in such a world, people lived closer to instinct than we like to admit, praying and fearing at once, believing in God while dreading the devil, craving order, yet haunted by chaos. The werewolf was born from that ground, a creature shaped by fear, famine, war, and sleepless nights. In the oldest tales, the werewolf is not always a monster. Sometimes it is a warrior wearing a wolf skin like a sacred armor, believing he borrows the beast's strength to protect his tribe. Sometimes it is a cursed outcast, driven from the community for breaking a law. And sometimes it is a mirror held up to the wildness humans try to hide beneath ritual, morality, roofs, and walls. But that mirror always carries a crack, because people did not tell werewolf stories only for entertainment. They told them to name what they were afraid to name directly: violence, lust, hunger, and the loss of control. Then came an era when fear became law. Picture a small village where everyone knows everyone's face, where sin needs no proof, only rumor. A child goes missing. A goat is torn apart. A streak of blood stains the snow. And immediately, the community begins to look at one another with different eyes. Who lives alone? Who wanders the forest? Whose gaze doesn't look human? In old trials, some confessions sound like a collective nightmare. The accused claims he met a dark figure, received a belt or skin, felt his bones change shape, ran into the woods, hunted with a pack. Sometimes he says he knew he was still human, yet could not resist the call. Sometimes he swears he obeyed the devil's command. And the truly terrifying part is this: whether you believe it or not, those words were often enough to condemn him. Part of the story lives right there. That era needed monsters. When disease spread, when harvests failed, when war sent men home with hollow eyes, a community needed a name for disaster. The werewolf was the perfect name, close enough to be believable, supernatural enough to explain everything. Blame the werewolf, and you do not have to face the truth that the world is chaotic, that death can arrive without reason, that a neighbor might commit cruelty out of desperation. The werewolf gave chaos a shape, and when chaos has a shape, people can burn it. But legend is only half. The other half is what makes the question, are werewolves real? Dangerous, because it leads us into stories where the people inside them do not think they are telling fairy tales. They believe, they feel, they live inside a body they no longer recognize. In modern psychiatry, there is a concept often described as a delusion of transformation, and werewolf syndrome can be one rare expression of it. A person may be absolutely convinced that they have become, are becoming, or will become an animal, often a wolf, sometimes a dog, a cat, a bird, anything tied to their fear or instinct. This is not cosplay. The person may hear roaring inside their head, feel their flesh changing, smell an animal scent on themselves, and behave like an animal, crawling, snarling, biting, fleeing light, searching for raw meat. What matters is this. In that moment, they are not pretending. They are living inside another reality, as if the brain has rewritten the entire map of the body. To understand that feeling, imagine waking up and suddenly everything familiar turns alien. Your hand is no longer a hand. It is a strange, heavy object that will not obey. The mirror reflects a face you do not recognize. Your heartbeat sounds like a hunter's drum. And deep inside, there is an idea, not a sentence, but a command. Run, bite, hide. When that command becomes louder than memory, louder than reason, a person can become a prisoner in their own body. And then the werewolf legend is no longer a ghost story for fun. It becomes the oldest language we have for the collapse of the self. But why a wolf? Why not a deer, a rabbit, some gentle creature? Because the wolf is a boundary. It stands at the edge of the village, the edge of light, the edge of order. It lives in packs, but remains wild. It is intelligent, yet never truly tamed. It symbolizes a kind of freedom humans both crave and fear. When a mind falls into chaos, it grabs the strongest symbol a culture has carved into the heart. In Europe, the wolf is that symbol. Somewhere else, it might be a tiger, a jackal, a demon, whatever shape collective fear has fed for centuries. And then there are cases that blur the line between illness and form even further. There is a rare condition in which the body grows abnormally thick hair across the face and even the whole body. In older times, people saw children like that, adults like that, and had no scientific language to explain them. They had only legend. A face covered in hair by candlelight, a grin revealing teeth, an unusual body, sometimes that was enough to turn a human being into living proof of a werewolf. And when a community is ready to believe, it will see what it wants to see. Then there is rabies, a disease that can make people fear water, convulse, become agitated, bite, and die in agony. Remember that in the old world, dogs and wolves were real dangers. A small bite could be a death sentence. Someone with rabies might snarl, bite, fear light, appear to go mad. If you were a villager centuries ago, what would you call it? You would name it with the language you have. Possessed, cursed, becoming a beast. From that angle, werewolf is not a species. It is a label an era slaps onto phenomena it cannot explain. But do not rush to conclude was all misunderstanding. Because there is something even harder than disease, collective obsession. When an entire community believes werewolves exist, that belief does not stay inside stories. It enters sleep, the way parents warn children, the way strangers are judged, the way night sounds are interpreted. Belief itself can produce behavior, can produce evidence, can produce confessions. A person tortured in fear will say almost anything to escape. A person drowning in guilt might choose the werewolf story as an explanation, because the devil made me do it feels easier than I did it. And a person truly falling into delusion may borrow the werewolf image to name the chaos inside their head. Follow me into another scene, not deep woods, but a narrow room smelling of damp stone and sweat, where a human being sits with bound hands, hollow eyes, cracked lips. Across from them stand people with power, with scripture, with law, with fire. They ask, "Are you a werewolf?" And the captive, caught between pain and terror, and nights forced to retell the same nightmare, finally nods. Not because they became a wolf, but because they have been turned into a werewolf inside society's story. Here is a brutal truth. Sometimes monsters are not born from darkness. They are born from humanity's need to find someone to blame. And yet, if that is so, why does the werewolf endure to this day? In film, novels, games, in stories American and European audiences still devour? Because the werewolf touches a contradiction that never grows old. Human versus instinct, morality versus desire, society versus the individual. Vampires tend to be seduction, immortality, cold power. Werewolves are different. Werewolves are eruption. They are not subtle, they are raw. They are the moment you realize you might do something you despise because of a surge of anger, fear, hunger. They are the question. If you peel off the skin of civilization, what remains? In many modern stories, the werewolf curse is tied to the full moon. That is not just decoration. The full moon symbolizes cycles, repetition, what cannot be controlled. It resembles relapsing illness, addiction, recurring depression or delusion, bursts of violence that people swear will never happen again until they do. The moon does not cause transformation, but it becomes the clock of fear. On ordinary days, you are human. On the appointed cycle, you become something else. That idea haunts us because it mirrors so much of real life, where human beings are not always masters of themselves. And this is where the question, are werewolves real, changes meaning. If you ask biologically whether a half-human, half-wolf species prowls the woods, the answer is almost certainly no. But if you ask anthropologically whether there have been times when humans believed they were wolves and acted as wolves, the answer is yes. If you ask culturally whether societies have created werewolves to digest fear and guilt, the answer is also yes. And if you ask psychologically whether there is a wild part inside every human that can rise when pushed to the edge, then the answer is the one that leaves people silent the longest. Think of years of war, famine, plague, when people are forced to stare at death every day. In those conditions, survival instinct becomes sharper than ethics. People steal food, kill to live, lose sleep, and hear sounds that are not there. A mind worn down like that will cling to symbols. The werewolf becomes a story to explain why a gentle person yesterday is violent today. It is a curtain hiding the truth that circumstances can turn humans into beasts, not by magic, but by pressure. Then comes the deeper symbolic layer, the reason the werewolf never dies. The werewolf is a confession that civilization is only a coat. We wear it to live together, build cities, write laws. But beneath that coat, we still have blood, teeth, rage. And because we fear that part, we create a story to speak for it. We say, there is a werewolf, instead of, there is violence in me. We say a curse, instead of, I cannot control myself. We say, the full moon, instead of, something in my past triggers me. In modern culture, the werewolf is often framed as tragedy. The character does not want to transform. They fear harming the people they love. They are hunted, misunderstood, hated. That shift is revealing. The more society understands psychology and believes less in demons, the more the werewolf becomes a metaphor for illness and stigma. It resembles people living with disorders invisible to outsiders, resembles addiction, trauma, uncontrollable anger. The werewolf becomes an ethical question. If someone does something horrific while not fully in control, are they a monster? Or are they a victim of their own brain? And then we return to werewolf syndrome in the modern sense, where the most frightening part of the story is no longer in the forest, but inside the locked room of the mind. When someone believes they are a wolf, it rarely appears out of nowhere. It may come with other conditions, hallucinations, severe depression, crushing guilt, or a desire to escape being human. Sometimes, I am a beast is another way of saying, I can't bear being human anymore. Being human means responsibility, pain, loss, laws, expectations. Being an animal sounds like an exit. Simpler, instinctive, no need to explain, no shame. But the price of that exit is the collapse of reality. If you have ever wondered why old legends survive, here is one answer. They are not only about monsters out there. They are about monsters in us, and the moments we fear ourselves. Werewolf syndrome, rare as it is like a window showing how the body and mind can betray each other. You may have eyes looking at the same world, but your brain tells a different story. And when that story becomes stronger, you will live inside it. But be careful. If we look at the werewolf only as pathology, we lose another crucial meaning. The werewolf is also a warning about society, about how communities treat what is different, about how people can build a monster to justify their own fear and violence. The old trials did not merely kill werewolves. They killed the vulnerable, the outcasts, the ones who didn't fit. Sometimes monster is the name power gives to those without a voice. So in the end, are werewolves real? If you want a hunter's answer, footprints in snow leading into the woods, a furred creature rising under moonlight to roar in humanity's face, you will probably be disappointed. But if you are brave enough to treat the question as a journey, you discover something more unsettling. Werewolves are real in ways we do not want to admit. They are real in history, where fear turns humans into each other's monsters. They are real in medicine, where certain minds can transform through belief. They are real as symbols, where instinct waits beneath the coat of civilization. They are real in culture, where we keep retelling a story because it touches the deepest crack in our species. We want to be human, and we are terrified we might not be human enough. Remember the forest at the beginning. The howl does not need your belief. It still carries. It might be a real wolf. It might be wind threading through trunks. It might be an echo from the collective memory of 1,000 years of stories told beside fire. But what matters is not where the sound comes from. What matters is what it does to you. A heart that suddenly drums faster, a question that leaps out before you can stop it. If tonight the wild part inside me wakes up, would I recognize it? And perhaps that is why the werewolf never dies. Because it does not live in the forest. It lives in the question, in the fear, in the truth that human beings who can build cities, write laws, fly into the sky still carry an ancient howl inside, waiting for a night to rise. If you want the ending to land like a verdict, I won't give you one. I want it to land like a storyteller's oath. Every time you hear the werewolf legend again, hear it as a story about the limits of being human, about how fragile we are before fear, illness, pressure, darkness, and about how strong we can be when we dare to look the wildness in the eye, give it a name, and learn to live with it without letting it rule us. Because perhaps the greatest victory is not killing the wolf in the woods. It is keeping the wolf in the heart from devouring what remains of the human.